All right, guys, so now we're going to start actually utilizing this template and underwriting this deal. One thing, I had made some changes since the last video to the underwriting template. This is now version 2.4. So we have some new changes, some pretty big ones. Down here, you can see this is new right here, this rent roll section. So I will be showing you how we utilize this by using the rent roll document, the financial that we were provided that we went through earlier. So we'll utilize this, and this will help us underwrite deals a little bit more accurately and understand the whole process. So I'll go over that in just a little bit. But let's dive into this property. So we're going to start off with step one, property information. As we know, this is the property name. I'm actually going to move this down so you guys can see the OM, which is I'm going to be taking the information from the OM right now. Scroll that down. It's going to be kind of tight here, but it's the only way to kind of show you guys both things at once. So this property is Courtyard of Roses. And then I like to put in where this property is located. So it's in Irving, Texas. Then we have our number of units. So in the OM, I already scrolled down to this page because it would have taken me a long time. So I'm already here. We've got number of units, 224. The purchase price, this information I found from the broker. And the broker gave me a kind of a whisper price, and that was $28 million is the price for this property. And this purchase price, you're always going to need to reach out to the broker to figure that out. Sometimes they'll have it listed in the OM, but most of the time they won't. We're going to keep it as a 5-year hold for now. It's kind of standard. We keep it that way. Rentable square footage, we can see up here. Net rentable square feet, 191,776. Okay, and then these two populate for us. Remember, we don't want to touch these white cells. They have formulas in them, and they populate for us. Now we have our property type. I believe this one is more of a B minus, maybe a C plus, and a kind of B plus area, A minus area. Pretty nice property. Year built, we have it up here, 1972. And there we go. That's kind of the information we want to take from the OM from right now. And the rest we want to take from the financials. And then we might come back to the OM for when we get to the value add section. So now I'm going to bring up the rent roll. Okay, so if you guys remember in the rent roll, we did some calculations at the end of it down here. Now these calculations you don't need to do because this part in the underwriting template, the rent roll section, actually does these calculations for you. So I decided just to incorporate it to make it easier instead of having to do these calculations on your own on the rent roll. So it's already built into the template for you. So we need to find out the current occupied income. And this is why we need the rent roll, because it's going to tell us what the income is currently for the most recent month. Now this property we're looking back at in January, so we have a January rent roll, but this was the most recent at the moment. So what we're going to look at is, I'm already at the bottom of the rent roll, and we have our income, current income right now, and this is excluding vacancies and all that, and then this is our market rental income for the month, based off 100% occupancy. So we have 195,876. This number we're going to put in the current occupied income in the template, 195,876. Now we need one of three options. We need the current vacant income, the number of vacant units, or the occupancy percentage. I like to stick to the top two. The top one's actually going to be the most accurate for you, but you can do either one, the number of vacant units or current vacant income, depending on the time that you want to take. So to find the current vacant income, we kind of did a calculation on the rent roll. If you go back to that video, you can see it. But right here, we have a current vacancy of 15,000. We can use that number. That was based off of average rent for the whole property, and then we timed that by 16 units to give us our current vacancy. I'm actually going to use what the market rent is, which is 16,340. So they already provided it for us. But if they don't, you have to kind of go through and do a little calculation, go through all the vacancies and figure out how many units are vacant, and then usually what the market rent is. That's kind of the easiest way to figure it out. So that's why we're going to stick with the 16,000. So we're going to put that 16,000 here in the template, 16,340. Now, when I did that, down here you notice these numbers populated: gross scheduled rents and the physical vacancy, both populated for us, and these are annualized numbers. So we used our month numbers for the current month, and then the spreadsheet will automatically calculate the annual ones. And if we scroll up here, we already have some of those numbers populated up here as well. So that helps us out and cuts out some time. Now, the last part of this rent roll section we need to fill in is the average below market rent and the number of units below market rent. This is pretty crucial spot. So we need to understand how below the units are from market. So a way to figure that out is one, using the rent roll is a quick way to figure it out. So if we look at some of the units, we can see, let's see right here. This one is, that's a bad example. Okay, let's find one that's got a difference. All right, this one's probably pretty good. So this one's got rent at $760, but market, at least what they're saying, is $810. So that's a $50 difference. Now you're gonna wanna kind of find the average. And one way to do that we'll probably do another video on, is you use the rent unit mix tab in the template. You come in here, this is kind of in the way. Let's fix that real quick. Let's hide this. You come into this rent unit mix tab and you start filling in the different unit types, how many units there are, the square footage, what the current monthly rent is on average, and then what the market rent is. Now that's going to help you figure out the difference. After you do that for all the unit types, you can come over down here to the bottom and it's going to show you the average rental increase, which could give you your below market rent number. So we'll do another video going through that on how to input those numbers and figure that out. But we'll go a quick way. And we're going to just take that $50. We're going to use this unit as an example and just say on average, all the units are $50 below market rent. Now, how many units? We're going to say all of them, except for we're not going to count for these vacant ones, which was 16 units, because this number is counting it at market rent. So we're going to do the 224 minus 16. So I'm just going to go ahead and put that in here, 224 minus 16. So we have 208 units that are below market rent. Now the importance of this is it's going to find our loss to lease number, which is up here. It just populated for us, 124,000. That's essentially saying we have $124,000 that we could potentially be getting if we raised rents $50 per unit. That's really important for us to follow that number. Okay, so that's all we really needed for the rent roll section. Now I'm going to bring up the T12 so we can start putting in concessions, other income, and all of our expenses. Let me just pull that up. All right, so now I have the T12. We're just starting at the top, gross potential rent. So now we don't need to worry about market rent or loss to lease or even vacancy. We can skip those three numbers and we just drop down to the bad debt, buyer's bad debt, and concessions. So I'm going to scroll over. Remember, we kind of worked on this a little bit. We added in the buyer's bad debt to the normal bad debt. So that's 21,000. Go ahead and put that in the spreadsheet. And notice it's a negative number in the T12, but in the spreadsheet, we just put all numbers in as normal positive numbers. And the spreadsheet will do all the magic behind the scenes of changing it to negative if it needs to be. Then our concessions we can see is 9,639. And now non-revenue units, I don't believe there are any here. Nope. And now we will skip down to utility reimbursement and other income. So here's the other income section on the T12. I'm going to scroll, look, all right, we already separated out the utilities for 299,000. So we're going to put that in, 299,645. Now I usually just stick to whole numbers. Over here we have 0.60. I'll stick to whole numbers. You can round it up to do 646. That's okay. It's not a huge deal. I'm going to scroll down. Okay, we've already subtracted it out. All the other income is 109,000. Perfect. Now we're going to keep on moving down to the expenses now. Yeah, admin expenses. So scroll down, find the admin expenses in the underwriting template. We got general, admin, legal right here. So that's going to be the 41,396. Next is management fee, asset fee. So management fee, 89,000. 89,058. Payroll's next. So now this one is, if you can remember, is kind of divided up. We have admin payroll, then we have repairs and maintenance payroll, and then total payroll. So we're going to take that total payroll number, 271,495. Keep on scrolling, marketing and retention. So total marketing expense, 33,008. Now we have repair and maintenance expense. Remember, we highlighted some of these to categorize them out as contract services. So we have our alarm service and maintenance. We have our cleaning service. We have landscape contract, paint service, pest control service, plumbing service, and we already calculated that out to be 49,000. So I input that. Now, all other repairs and maintenance, we calculated out. And we also added in the turnover maintenance expense into that. So 108,000 will be our total maintenance, repairs and maintenance. So we can skip over their turnover. Now we're down to utilities. Total utilities $406,003. Now at the bottom, which is usually always at the bottom, is the taxes and insurance. So we have insurance, 3 different insurances. So we have that added up. So taxes we have as $338,720, and insurance $114,117. Awesome. Now, asset management, you don't need to worry about this. This usually isn't included in the T12s, and then any miscellaneous, if there is any. We usually don't have anything like that because we're pretty good at categorizing it. All right, now we have all the seller's information. Now we're going to go over to our assumptions. So now I don't really need the T12 for the moment. So I'm going to make this bigger so you guys can see this better. All right. Now we're in step 3, our assumptions. So physical vacancy, we always want to, especially first year, put the physical vacancy a little high, so 8 to 10%. In this scenario, it's already at 7, so I'm going to up it up to 10% because we need to account for all the renovations we're going to be doing and that time that takes away from actually having the units renovated out or rented out. Concessions, it just depends on your model and if you will provide concessions to tenants. We usually we don't really provide concessions, but we go ahead and put in, not 5%, we put in 0.5%. Loss and bad debt, we assume 3%. And then non-revenue units, we don't have any, so we're going to leave that blank. Now when we go down to expenses, here we need to find the mill rate, so the property tax rate in that county where the property is at. I need to go find that. I don't have it pulled up right now, but this is a number that you can find through your tax assessor's office. Reach out to them, figure out what the property tax rate is. You could also ask them about what the last year's property taxes were for this current property to give you an idea. I'll need to find that number and come back. Usually it's kind of around 1% to 2%, and then that can change your numbers however much. But I don't think there was I think it was 1.8. I need to go verify that. But I think we'll stick with that because that's a little bit of an increase. But you want to know that number because taxes are your largest expense and can hurt a deal bad. So we don't need to mess with these numbers because they're auto-populated. So let's move down to payroll. If you need to know what the rule of thumb is, kind of have an idea, you can just hover over to the left. It shows 1,000 to 1,200 a unit. So we got to make sure that in this section we're putting it per unit and not annualized. So payroll, we're going to start off kind of high at $1,200. Then repairs and maintenance, we're going to start at, I'm going to look over here at the sellers are at kind of 482. I'm going to go ahead and put in 600 then. Insurance. So the other rule of thumb for insurance, it shows 400 a unit or whatever the market is. This is something you're going to want to kind of discuss with an insurance broker, but ours, Nico, our insurance broker, Nico, his rule of thumb is to add $50 on top of whatever the property it has currently. So they have about $500 in insurance, so we're going to put $550. The management fee, this depends on the size of the property. This is a pretty large property, so we're going to do about 3.5%. Contract services, theirs is about 200. I'll leave ours around 200 as well. General and admin, theirs is 180. Let's just put 200 to be safe. Again, you can look over these and check what the rule of thumb is for those. Asset management, we usually always typically have 2%. Then marketing, about $100. Theirs is 150. We could increase it up to 152 if that's what it's going to take. So let's do that. Let's put 150 for now. All right, so that's step 3. Let's move over to step 4, the mortgage information. So it's not an assumable loan. It's a normal new financing. So we're going to leave that blank. We don't need to touch that spot at all. If you hover over here, it says only need to fill in if you are assuming a loan, and we're not. So we can skip that. Move down to down payment, 25%. We'll leave that as is. Interest rate, we're going to leave that 4% for now until we get word back from our lender of what, like a soft quote. Interest only period, we can leave this blank for now. Later we can come back and mess with this, and then we'll leave these blank as just normal as is. So mortgage information is fine for now. Step 5, closing and acquisition costs. Yeah, 3%, 1%, 5%. Since this is a larger property, we're going to drop it down to 3% for now. And then a guarantor fee. We're going to leave this. Now we scroll down. It shows capital improvements. This is a white cell. We do not touch this cell. It will populate when we go to the value add tab. Capital reserves per unit. If you need a rule of thumb, hover over here. 1970s, $350 per door. 1980s, $300, and so forth. Let's check what the year it was, 1972. So we're going to put $300 in here. Or is it $350? Let's check it again. Okay, so it's just pre-1980, it's $300. Exit cap rate. So it's showing right now that this purchase price is a 4.5% purchase price. Now, hopefully we're buying this property at market, which it is kind of like this right now in Irving, Texas, about a 4.5% for this kind of property. So we're buying it kind of at market value. So we're going to go ahead and put 5% as the exit cap rate. Now remember, the rule of thumb is 10 basis points. So 0.1 or 0.10 percentage points for every year that you hold it. So we're holding for 5 years. We're buying it at a 4.5 cap. So we're adding 0.5% for the 5 years. Then manager's cash flow, we're going to leave it at 30-70 split right there. And that is the first input page. We're going to stop the video here and we're going to move over to the value add tab in the next video and fill that in.